Hey everyone, I'm Chad,
And I'm Carrie.
and welcome to
Let's Get Physical.
It's the show where we bring you something from our large collection.
Because Chad won't stop buying stuff.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
In my defense, we now own all of these movies now and forever.
Well, until like a disc gets scratched or broken or the format becomes obsolete.
Well, maybe I can just rebuy it. I don't know.
Okay. But we figured we would watch all of these movies together and review them.
Yeah, so each week, or hopefully each week, we're going to bring you a new review of some movie or show from our collection.
So without further ado, let's get into this week's episode. Okay, Chad, what movie do we have today?
Today, we have the movie Bound for Glory. We just have like a simple Blu-ray disc here, directed by Hal Ashby, starring David Carradine. You may know him from the Kill Bill movies. At least that's where I know him from. A quick brief synopsis from the back of the Blu-ray case is Bound for Glory, the Woody Guthrie biopic, a snapshot of Depression-era Americana, is directed by Hal Ashby and features majestic camera work by the great Haskell Wexler. A bravura-led performance by David Carradine as the famed singer-songwriter is complemented by the supporting performances of Melinda Dillon, Gail Strickland, and Ronnie Cox.
Our physical copy is just kind of this it's a pretty standard issue Blu-ray. I guess it's issued by MGM. This copy does not have really any special features. I think it had like a trailer, which we didn't watch because we watched the whole movie. I don't even think it had a commentary, although maybe there's a commentary there. So pretty bare bones, mostly just the movie with this like physical edition.
Hey, I'm not mad about it. I know I bought this one specifically because, for two reasons. One, I do a Best Picture show with my buddy Dylan Randazzo, so we were watching it for that. And then also because I was excited since we had just seen A Complete Unknown. Definitely features Woody Guthrie, so it was really interesting to see the history of him. Carrie, do you want to give us your non-spoiler thoughts for now?
Yeah, so kind of non-spoiler thoughts, and it's hard because I don't know how much you can spoil a biopic like this. It's a pretty straightforward biopic. Non-spoiler, though, I was really excited to watch this because after Chad watched A Complete Unknown, he bought an audiobook called Dylan Goes Electric, which talks a lot about Woody Guthrie because he and Bob Dylan were like close kind of collaborators.
Woody Guthrie inspired
Dylan,
basically.
Yeah. So I was really interested to watch this movie. And it is really an interesting movie. I think if you're like really interested either in this time period, like Depression era, or you're really interested in like folk music and Woody Guthrie, this is just a really fantastic movie. I mean, generally it's a good movie overall, but I think like folks who would be most interested in it would be folks who are interested in music history or interested in like Depression era history. But generally it's a pretty good movie. What do you think, Chad?
Yeah, I like this one. I generally like music biopics. This one, just like how the Blu-ray case or Blu-ray edition here that we have is pretty bare bones. I would say that's kind of the same thing for the movie itself, is that it doesn't have like if you think of like a music biopic, this is kind of what that is. It's nothing super special other than it is the movie about Woody Guthrie. So if you're, like Carrie said, interested in folk music, interested in Woody Guthrie himself, it's definitely a very interesting look on how an artist around that time would get their start, not only just trying to gain fame and recognition for their art, but also how they were able to make art around that time when people are struggling just in general to find work, and how this time period dealt with just worker struggles and clashes with people who are trying to exploit workers at a time when is just like so scarce. The work is so scarce. Organizing and trying to basically make the time better for workers is really tough. I liked a lot of that. I liked like what it had to say about like the rich versus the poor and the class struggle, and what it means for like a rich person to be rich around a bunch of people who are struggling? And, what's the morality of that for the rich person? And things like that. For the quality of the movie overall, I remember like on our picture this slate that we do over at the Dill Pickle Movie Network, it was one of the ones that we agreed was basically on the lower end of the spectrum of Best Picture for that slate, not total, because there's some really bad Best Picture movies out there, and this one is actually a good movie. I think it's just because it doesn't have a lot of flair. It feels very Grapes of Wrath. Yeah, I'd say it's good. I think anyone can watch it and enjoy it, but you might be most interested, as Carrie said, if you're really into music, history, Woody Guthrie. I would check it out because it's kind of gotten forgotten to time, it feels like. Those are our general thoughts. We can get into spoiler talk now, which, like Carrie said, it's a biopic, so it's not really much we can actually spoil about like the time period. And if you read a history book, you probably know a lot about what went down in that time. If you don't want to know anything else, go check it out and come back. Throw a like and subscribe out there for us to help our channel grow. Let's get into spoiler discussion. Carrie, do you have any other thoughts about this movie? Anything you really liked or didn't like? Anything?
Yeah, there was a lot I really liked about this movie. I thought David Carradine's acting as Woody Guthrie was really fantastic. Like, he really did embody that character very well. I thought the music was pretty strong. It was like, I think, a pretty like true to life adaptation. The music never felt very unnatural. It felt like very much like natural and part of the movie. What did you like about this movie, Chad?
I think there's a good amount. Like the fact that it kind of like gave me big Grapes of Wrath vibes. I keep bringing that one up is because it's another movie that we watched recently for the Picture This Best Picture watch along slate. And it just kind of reminded me of people who are like, well, we got to pack up and move to California because there's no work here. We're like working for like painting signs for dollars, pennies, basically. And, our town's getting like washed away with the Dust Bowl and all the stuff. I remember Carrie was kind of looking away at one point, and then I had to point at the screen like, what is that? And it was almost like it was turning into like a disaster movie, like The Perfect Storm or, some sort of like apocalyptic kind of thing. And it was like this huge cloud of like dust that was coming towards them, and getting caught in that, you got to like wear a mask, and really, really terrifying stuff. But it's, I guess it is a disaster movie in the way that, people were, work was scarce, and couldn't really find means other than going to California. And I thought that it was interesting to see him, traveling to California, falling into, there's a big need for like protesting. And that's what this movie turns into, is basically like a protest movie, and using your music for helping spread the word about the, worker situation that's going on. Rich people and people in power exploiting the worker. And it's interesting because this movie came out in the 1970s, and yet nowadays it still feels like we're going back on a lot of the stuff that, we've passed to help workers in this country. And then, all of a sudden this movie becomes extremely relevant again. I mean, it's not as dire of a situation, I guess, as it was then at that time. But I feel like, this one is one that a movie that can that has a message that can remind you of what times were like, and how we could easily go back to that, and people trying to fight for their rights as workers, and how great art can help that. Not even just music, but movies and shows and just anything that's out there to spread a message and help people realize that things can be better, and you just have to really work for it. And so I think that's the big message of the movie that I really like. Also, like the message of staying true to your art and your work, rather than being told what you can do and being exploited, almost going like independent, rather than having some studio head telling you that you have to play for entertainment rather than playing for something real, like something that can actually help people.
Yeah, the messaging was really strong in this movie. I think it was like Chad said, and I think a lot of these issues are still really relevant today. So it makes it like in that respect, it's still a really cool movie to watch today. Just workers' rights. I think we're still really far from the ideal for workers' rights, even though people like Woody Guthrie and like this movie kind of show the development of workers' rights and how we got certain rights in this country based on things that people like Woody Guthrie did and the people who started to unionize that are shown in this movie. But I think it's still really relevant today. There are a lot of workers who are still really exploited. And also, like you said, Chad, like the themes of like, standing true to your art, because a part of this movie is like Woody Guthrie, he develops his music as some of them are like, protest songs and, songs about the experiences he is having and seeing on the ground as a worker and as someone who is suffering during the Dust Bowl and the Great Depression. When he kind of starts to make it big and folks are trying, like the heads of the radio and stuff are trying to get him to get like approved songs and not sing about the things he like writes his music about, which are like workers' rights. He does stay true to that. And so I think this movie is a good like demonstration of Woody Guthrie's life and how he did try to stay true to those values throughout his career.
I don't know if there's like too many negatives about the movie specifically, other than the fact that it was just kind of like straight up just showing the guy's life during his very specific time period. I think they cut because like it was a little bit interesting how they were portraying him as kind of like someone who's not faithful to their wife and kids.
Yeah.
Showing that, but like also like I wonder if maybe if they would have made his family more of characters, we could have actually like got more out of that whole story, because I feel like he leaves his wife and kids and then we don't see them until like towards the end, and then
I think it's like something that biopics in general can sometimes kind of struggle with, is like one, you want it to be like an accurate representation of most of the person's life and hit on all the really important moments. And I think this movie is really focused on like kind of the subjects of his work, which start out, they're kind of like rooted in his family, like the poverty of his family and his family suffering from the Depression and deciding to move out to California, and then like morphing into workers' rights issues, and like his family is like slowly becomes less a part of that story. But I do think you're right, Chad. It does kind of create like kind of like an awkwardness, because we see parts of his family, but then they kind of just like, well, after his wife and kids come out to California, and then he's not being faithful to his wife, and she's disagreeing with the decisions that he's making, and they just kind of leave, and then they drop off and aren't really heard from the rest of the movie. It does kind of feel like almost a little bit of a loose end, but yeah, I think it's in general something that biopics, it's kind of hard to be both true and accurate and faithful, but also like maintain like certain themes in the movie and certain focuses.
and maybe just like kind of like it's good commentary on, he left his family, he left his kids, like his life is going on now, and the movie kind of ends with him just kind of going off playing his music with that away from his family. So it's almost like he kind of left to go do his own thing. So I guess maybe it would make like kind of natural sense that they would be less a part of the movie, and if you would have made them a bigger part of it, maybe they would have felt like more a part of his life. Or
any other like big highlights you found with this movie or anything? Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's really not that like many big characters in this one. They're just kind of like fleeting like glimpses of his life, like going through this like phase in his life. And so, really just talking about him in this moment, I think was pretty much all we can do with this movie. It's very basic. I feel like it has good themes, good messaging. I liked learning more about Woody Guthrie as an artist, even though it's more of an individualistic take on the Depression era historical film than The Grapes of Wrath is, which is more of a familial, like a lot of different characters and they're doing different stuff, and here it's, mostly like the one thing, the very central focus. But yeah, I mean, I like it. I think it's, if you want to know more about the subject of the person, definitely check this one out. And you can always buy it on Blu-ray if you want to get physical. Yeah, Carrie, I mean, I think that's it. I think we can go ahead and wrap this one up. Stay tuned for the next movie.
Yeah, I think it'll be like either Eraserhead or Network.
We're doing a lot of David Lynch stuff, so stay tuned for a lot of David Lynch stuff. Maybe some best picture style movies, and maybe if we feel random one day, maybe we'll just pop on something else that's different, because we got a lot of stuff back there. So thank you guys for watching so much. Please throw this video a like, subscribe to the channel, stay tuned for other stuff. Check out the other show that we do, You Rankin' With Me, which is a lot of rankings of franchises, and we have a lot of really fun guests. My co-host for that show is James Tancock, one of our good friends, and Carrie's on pretty much every episode. There's only a few that she hasn't done, and we have a lot of fun ranking stuff over there.
Yeah, and if you watch Bound for Glory, if you go and watch it, we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments.
Definitely.